welcome back to my channel. For today's video we have another tag, and this is the blush collection tag. This video was originally inspired by the eyeshadow palette tag that was created by Samantha and Allie Glines, and I've since seen it turned into the blush collection tag as well as other areas of people's makeup collections, and I originally seen this from Jessica Braun. I will have everyone's channel linked in the description box below, as well as the questions for this tag. I can't remember whose videos I took these actual questions from, but I believe they are pretty much one and the same to the eyeshadow palette tag. There is one question that I couldn't see in the video that I took them from that I believe I have heard in other people, so I stuck that in as well. So why don't we get started? So starting with the newest blush in my collection, and that is one from Colourpop. This is the Whole 9 Yards, which was part of their garden variety collection, I believe, and this is such a gorgeous blush. It does have a bit of shimmer to it in the pan, but once it's on the cheeks it's not too shimmery. I do tend to prefer a matte blush, as you'll see throughout this video, but this one has just a nice level of shimmer to it, and I do really like how this looks on the cheeks. It is a gorgeous shade, but it is nice and buildable as well. It is a great blush and I'm really glad that I purchased it. I do love the packaging on this one as well, just the whole general aesthetic of it, and a great purchase. And for my oldest blush, this one was actually quite hard to pinpoint because I couldn't remember exactly which one was my oldest one. In the end I went for this one by Tarte. I do have quite a lot of these ones in my collection and it will feature a couple of times in this tag. But I believe this shade, which is Ornate, is one of my older ones. When I did my blush declutter a little while ago, I know I did get rid of some that were really old in my collection, so nothing that I have now is too old, but I do believe this one might be my oldest. This is definitely one of my favourite formulas of blush, and like I say, one I have a lot of in my collection. This is a really great blush and I do really like the shade of this one, even though it is slightly brighter than I tend to go for. But overall I just love the formula of the Tarte Amazonian Clay blushes. Then on to most expensive blush, and again it is the Tarte Amazonian Clay, but this one is the full size one. So this one is just in the shade Exposed, and I think I may have got this as part of a gift set. If it didn't get as part of a gift set, I don't think I paid full price for it, but looking at the full price online, these are £25 each, so comparing it to the rest of the blushes in my collection, this one is the most expensive, but I don't think I paid more for it than any of my other blushes, but I felt like it fitted into this category. The next is Everyday Blush, and for this one I went with this one from Flower Beauty. This is one of their flower pots, and this is in the shade Sweet Pea. This is such a gorgeous tone of blush. This is probably, when I'm shopping for blushes, the shade that I'm always drawn towards in any blush that I'm purchasing. So a lot of my blushes do have this similar kind of shade to them in variations of deepness and things, but looking at all the different pinks and shades in my collection, this is the one that if I can't think of one to pick, then I'll just automatically go for this one, and I could easily wear this one every single day. It is a really nice formula as well. It is decently long lasting and it does just make your cheeks look nice and healthy. It is my kind of preferred matte formula. So I do really like this one from Flower Beauty. They have got quite a few shades available, but on looking at them, it's only really this one that I think I like the look of. The rest of them seem a little bit too, I think they've got an orangey toned one and a more purpley toned one. So even though I do want to have more of these blushes in my collection because I do really like it, I'm happy with this one for the time being, and it is definitely an everyday one for me. Next we have Most Colourful, and for this one I went with the Natasha Denona Blush and Glow, obviously just the blush shade in here. This one is a kind of like corally pink shimmery shade. I think it probably stood out as being the most colourful because I think it's the most shimmery blush that I own. Again, I tend to go for matte blushes, and this one is quite a bright colour. Once it's on the cheeks, provided you go in with a light hand, it is a really nice shade, but it is very buildable and can be very in your face. I do really love this blush formula, and I think this is a great little palette generally. I think these only retail for, it's either £16 or £19, and for me they are completely worth it. I know we're not talking about highlighters in this video, but this is a great highlighter as well, and definitely one of my favourites in my collection. But yeah, colourful wise, I think it fits the bill. And looking at the back, the shade is actually called Golden Coral, and I would say that that is definitely a very golden corally shade. The next category is Best Memory, and for me that falls with the Balm Frat Boy blush. This is a blush that I do absolutely love and I do reach for a lot, and did nearly kind of fall into the everyday category. I wanted to try and not overlap the categories as much as I could and think of a different answer for each one. So when it came to best memory, I realised I wanted to put this one in. The reason that this is in best memory is because it was actually a drunk purchase. So I don't really get drunk very often. I don't really like the feeling of being drunk and things. If I'm on a night out, I will only have a few drinks. I won't go overboard, and at the point I'm feeling drunk, I kind of tend to stop. But I do remember purchasing this after a night out with my friend, and I believe we were at some sort of like gin festival, or where we were had a gin festival on or something like that. So a lot of gin was consumed that night, and that was at the very beginning of me drinking gin, so I don't think I'd quite kind of found my sea legs with it, as it were. So I remember coming home and being a bit worse for wear and getting an email from Feel Unique about the sale on the Balm products. So I purchased this, and I purchased the Swing eyeliner. I don't like that eyeliner at all, but I do love this blush. So I was very glad that I didn't regret both of the purchases that I made that night. And I say every time I pick this up, it does remind me of the fact that I did purchase this one drunk. But yeah, that's my best memory from a blush. Next is the Worth the Hype category, and for me that is a blush palette. This is the BH Cosmetics Vanilla Cream Truffle palette, and they do have these in a lot of different shades, but for me the vanilla cream one did seem to fit more of my aesthetic. This palette I believe was somewhere around the £10 mark, which I think is an absolute steal. I had seen so many people talking about these and all the different variations and saying how good they were for all different skin tones. There was kind of a palette for everyone, and they were saying the formula was outstanding and they were really pretty shades of blushes. They were really buildable, and I have to agree with everything everyone said. These just are such nice blushes. They have a really nice consistency to them. They are kind of soft to the touch, but they're not powdery or anything like that. They do blend onto the cheeks beautifully, and they are really buildable as well. This is a palette that if I had to kind of give up all of my blush collection and just keep one, it would probably be this. Not just the fact that I would have 4 different shades in it, but that I do just love the formula of this so much. And again, it's kind of one that could have fallen into everyday category because I could reach for this one every day. It does have a slight scent to it, which is of vanilla, but it's not overpowering at all. And to be honest, I always kind of forget it has a scent until I open it and I'm pleasantly surprised. But yeah, this is a great palette, and I think it is definitely worth the hype. Then we have one not worth the hype, and for me I had to go with this one from Milk Makeup. This is one of their cheek and lip tints, and I got this in a mini set which came with I think it was a blurring primer and then a mini of the Milk moisturiser. I am really glad that I got to try it, but I am also glad that I did just pick up a mini because I believe the full size of this is pretty huge. But it is obviously a kind of bullet type blush, and it is a nice shade, but I just can't get it to work for me. I've tried it in numerous different ways. I've tried to apply it kind of straight onto my cheek. I've gone at it with a brush. I've gone at it with a sponge, and I just can't seem to get it to not look patchy. Don't feel like the shade is quite right for me as well. It is definitely more warm, sort of berry toned than what I tend to go for with blushes. I do like more leaning pink than sort of reddy toned. I don't know if it has a shade name. I don't think it does. But yeah, this one just didn't work for me at all, and I see so many people saying about how much they love either these blush sticks or the bronzer sticks as well. And I knew going into it that I am more of a kind of powder girl. I wasn't a cream or liquid blush kind of person. So I didn't have the highest hopes for it, but because it had been so hyped up online, I did expect a little bit more of it, if that makes any sense. But for me, it didn't fit the bill and it didn't do what I needed to do. I've kept it in my collection for now, but when I'm next due to do a declutter, I don't know if this one's going to survive, because I do always go and give it a go and then I wish I kind of hadn't, because it can tend to ruin the makeup that I've applied underneath. So yeah, this one just wasn't worth the hype for me at all. Also, the packaging is really annoying because the lid isn't very tight and it always kind of rattles around, and if I'm not too careful it comes off really easy. So that's another annoying thing about it. The next category is favourite from a favourite brand, and for that I went with another one from Colourpop, and this time I went for one of the Disney ones. I was kind of incorporating the fact that Disney is a favourite as well as the brand Colourpop. So this is the Enchanted Mirror blush, which is the one obviously from Belle from Beauty and the Beast and was part of the Disney designer collection. This is a really gorgeous kind of understated blush. It is a very muted pinky shaded kind of brown tinge blush. Doesn't describe it very well, but it is absolutely gorgeous on the cheeks. Again, another one that could fit very easily into the everyday category. That is kind of my aesthetic, to be honest. I do kind of like a subtle blush. I don't like to look like a clown. So for me, a lot of my blushes do fall into that category. So the everyday one was sort of the hardest one to pick from. So that's why I ended up going back to that one once I answered the other categories. But I do absolutely love this blush. It is a gorgeous shade and it is a really nice formula as well. I have tried a couple of blushes now from Colourpop and I have been really impressed with their formula. And they are just such an affordable brand, so generally I do love the brand Colourpop, so I am really excited that I do have this one in my collection. I do have the one from the Rapunzel set as well, which I think is called Floating Lights, but that one is a bit more of a baby pink, so isn't quite the colour scheme I tend to go for, and I do tend to find myself reaching for this one more often, but yeah, definitely a favourite. Then we have the most nostalgic blush, and again, I'm going to have to go with Tarte Amazonian Clay. This is one of the first high-end blushes that I ever purchased. It was one of the first blushes that I'd heard so much things about online. I remember when I very first kind of started watching YouTube, the main things that were getting talked about on the channels I watched were either the Urban Decay Naked palette or the Tarte Amazonian Clay blushes. So it does kind of remind me of when I very first started watching YouTube, and it is the first sort of high-end purchase that I made based solely on watching YouTube, so it is very nostalgic for that purpose. Next we have most disappointing blush. Obviously the Milk Makeup one could definitely fit into that category as well, but I feel like because I didn't go into that one with too high of an expectation, I couldn't call that the most disappointing. So I actually went for this one from Benefit. This is the Rocator Blush, and this is from a little mini set of blushes that I got for Christmas a few years ago, and generally it's the kind of set as a whole that I'm thinking of that disappointed me. It was a set of, I think, 6 products. There were 2 bronzers in it and then I think 4 blushes. And I think this might be the only surviving product left. I definitely decluttered the bulk of that set in my last blush declutter. So I was definitely disappointed by the set as a whole and the kind of performance of all the blushes in it. One thing I hadn't appreciated when I got that set was how heavily scented the Benefit blushes are. And because they all were kind of next to each other, and I do tend to keep things in packaging, whenever I'd get them out the set, that I would just be overwhelmed by the smell. This one now, the smell has kind of dissipated slightly, but you can still smell it. Once it's applied on your cheeks, you can't at all, but it's just something that kind of added to the disappointment that I didn't know that they had the scent to them. This is a nice enough blush, nice enough that I kept it around, but just generally I was disappointed by their formula. I think it's because I did really enjoy the Hoola bronzer that I did expect more of their blushes, but I just found they went on ever so slightly patchy and they did take a bit more blending compared to other blushes that I had in my collection. So even though I have kept this one because I do enjoy it, it's definitely not a favourite. And then the category that I wanted to stick in that wasn't on the video I took the points from is underrated, and for that I'm going to have to go with the Ofra formula. So this is just one of their normal blushes, obviously in a mini, and this is in the shade Rose, and this is a fantastic blush. I had kind of heard of their blush formulas in regards to collaborations and things and them being hyped up in that respect, but just their normal blush formula I hadn't heard an awful lot about. It's more their highlighters that I feel like are talked about rather than their blushes, but I say this is a great blush. It is a really nice formula that is nice and buildable. It is really long lasting as well, and this shade is kind of my aesthetic. Obviously from what you've seen of other blushes, this is my sort of perfect shade. I do just prefer a sort of muted pink blush. Again, as you will have seen, I don't own many peach type blushes. It is pink that I tend to go for. This does make me want to try maybe one of their blush palettes or possibly a bigger blush, but I feel like a mini is good enough in that I know I'm going to get a lot of use out of this product. And because of the way I apply my blush, I do tend to prefer a mini, to be honest. I do go in with a sort of slightly smaller brush and I do just apply it to the apples of my cheeks and then ever so slightly dust it up. So I don't feel like I need a sort of big pan of blush. I do prefer the more compactness of a mini, and obviously it's cheaper as well. Based on the amount of blushes I have in my collection, the likelihood of me going through a full blush is very slim, so I'm all for minis, and this is a really cute compact. It is nice and sturdy, and it does have a little mirror as well, so I do love this blush, and I don't feel enough people talk about them, and they are really underrated. So that is the blush collection tag. I feel like I was all over the place slightly during this video. I also have a kind of frog in my throat today. I have now got rid of my cough and things that I had a week or so ago, but I just can't seem to get rid of this tickle in my throat today, and I've spent a lot of this video clearing my throat, which I'm hoping I can edit out. But other than that, that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks!